Do you see some guys who, like, again, you don't need to name names on this, but you see guys just basically wasting their money when they're first on tour? Like, they just don't have any conception of, hey, I might need to save some of this money or cheap out here, cheap out there in order so I have a reserve to keep this going. That some guys might not necessarily flame out because of talent. It's just they can't afford to do this anymore.
I maybe in a text thread I could tell you some of the names.
Mayo experience.
Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by Underdog. We're bringing him back on. He joined us earlier in the year. Now that the PGA Tour season is over, let's reintroduce Michael Kim back to the world. Owner of 3 top 15 finishes in his past final 4 starts to end his season. You locked up your tour. How did you know when you locked up your tour card? Was there, because I saw you tweeting about it after Cabo, but like, was that for sure, like going to Bermuda, that you had locked it up?
Well, after Vegas, where I finished, is it fifth or something like that?
Yeah,
Fifth.
I love that I know and you don't know.
I had gotten to 424 points or so, and the tour, you ask the tour what number you need to get to, but they always give you like a really conservative number, like a super high number, just so that well, the players don't say like, hey, I thought you said I was good, or something like that. And it's such a kind of a fluid situation too. I figured if I got to like 430, 440 out, 440, I knew I was going to be really safe. 420 was kind of really, you just, it could be like a coin flip, could depend on how guys finish. So felt like I just needed, maybe a cut or two after Vegas. And I think I finished like 30 something at Cabo, and I felt really good then. But then like at Bermuda, a lot of the fringe guys around top 125 were playing really well. And so like I was looking at projections, and points wise I was pretty good, but I think I was projected like maybe like 122 or something like that after the second round at Bermuda. And so you're just now you're kind of going like, well, worst case scenario, like, if those 123 to 120, 5 or 6 guys end up playing really well at Bermuda and at RSM, you just never know. But then I had a really good finish at Bermuda, so I felt like I was 100% safe after Cabo. But then I after Bermuda, I for sure knew I was good.
Do you like that? I played the Cabo course 2 years ago, right before they actually made it a part of the swing event and switched the worldwide technologies over to that course. I can't imagine what it's like as a pro to play it, because frankly, like as a resort course, the wind was down the day I played it, and I'm not very good. It just didn't seem like there was trouble anywhere.
Yeah, the fairways have to be like the widest on tour that week. And even some of the holes, like hole 1, hole 2, like there are pretty big bowls there. It got pretty windy a couple of days, which is the only defense of the golf course. But a guy like me, like if the fairways aren't wide, that's great. If I'm in the fairway, my iron game is my strong point, I feel like. So I actually like it going to that week.
Yeah, well, the week before was the brand new Utah course as well. Didn't that have really like super giant fairways too?
It's a little bit different there. Like there it had like above average width fairways, but if you missed the fairway, you could very possibly be reteeing, which I did a couple times. um, so it's I don't particularly enjoy that type of golf course where it's like Cancun back in the day, kind of that desert style where fairways are generous, yes, but if you kind of have one big miss, you could easily be staring at double or triple. Um, so I didn't enjoy that course as much, but that's just personal preference, really.
Yeah, I'm on Fantasy National right now, just looking at like the entire year worth of performance, and you kind of hit the skids right after. Well, I mean, you played well in Hamilton at the RBC Canadian Open. I guess that was in the end of June. But from then, even through the first few starts of the swing season, like you missed a bunch of cuts. The driving was not great, and the putting like went down the tubes. And then all of a sudden, you get to Vegas and it flips. The putter seems to be, at least statistically, on fire. Like you mentioned your irons, they were awesome all year long. Were you able to like reharness the driver in your final few starts?
Yeah, I think this year I signed with Titleist and they've been great. But there was a bit of a transition phase of trying to find the right driver. I was kind of working through a couple like minor swing changes. Wasn't 100% sure, what kind of which direction I wanted to go with my swing, and I was just kind of in the middle of both of those kind of phases. And the new GT2 came out, and I thought I really liked that, but still needed to make a couple of changes with my driver. I shortened it by half inch just to try and limit those big misses that I've been struggling with. I put a little bit of lead tape on the toe to kind of help my big hook left miss. And it kind of all came together at Vegas. Vegas is actually one of those events where, like I said before, the big miss can cost you, but there you don't have as many drivers off the tee there as most courses. So, which is why I think I've played well there the last couple of years. But yeah, I think those were kind of the reasons why I struggled there in the middle part. But then I really found my groove towards the end of the year.
Well, when it comes to like going to Vegas, like I said, the putter seemed to have flipped there. Like instead of, just treading water, being a little bit below field average, like you hit a big spike there. You hit a big spike at Sea Island too. Like when it comes to putting, we look at this all the time and try to project out like putting is fickle. The worst guy in the field can be the best guy in the field for any given round if he makes a few 40-footers just out of happenstance. But I look at someone like Emiliano Grillo, like for a while he was just negative. Like for 5 years straight, the dude couldn't make a putt. And then all of a sudden he reels up. It's like 12 in a row. All of a sudden he's just gaining on the field. Like, is it a mental thing? Is it a feel thing? Is it a new putter thing? Like what flips the switch?
But sorry to interrupt you there, but Emiliano I've known for a really long time. I've played junior golf with him since I was like 10 years old. That guy's been a ball striker since like he was the day he picked up a golf club and has struggled with his putting since then. But yeah, putting is super fickle sometimes. I have my stats guy run all the stats, and it's for whatever so I'm really good inside of 8 feet. That hasn't been the issue. I've struggled more from that 8 to 20 feet range where it's probably a lot of kind of your birdie opportunities and stuff like that. And for whatever reason, I haven't been as consistent. Putting historically, starting from my rookie year, has been definitely one of my strengths. But I've struggled in that kind of middle 8 to 15 feet range. I think over the last month and a half, 2 months of the season, the stats guy told me this is kind of where you're struggling. So I tried to put more emphasis on the and putting practice at that point. I don't have like this perfect reason why it started going in at Vegas. Yeah, it's just really fickle. I don't know what to tell you. Hopefully I can kind of keep it going and keep that focus in.
Well, now that so you finished 117th in the FedEx Cup, and then they changed how the FedEx Cup is not calculated, but the amount of guys that get into certain tournaments, and now they seem to be shrinking the field maybe at some of them. Like when you're hearing this and knowing that you're like a bubble guy, but you're in and you have your tour card, how does that make picking your schedule for the next year? Is it tough to know like, oh, if certain amount of people decide to play this tournament, then maybe I get bumped from it? Like it seems if you're not one of the top 50 guys, basically, it seems like it's up in the air every week.
Well, yes and no. Like, this year, my schedule is, or this upcoming year, my schedule is probably going to look exactly the same as last year. Everyone, like when I was, my rookie and my first 4 or 5 years, if you were inside the top 125, certain guy, like you would overlap, yes, but you really were able to kind of pick and choose your schedule a little bit more. These days, everyone's just playing everything that they can get into, minus a couple um, of those opposite field events here and there. They might skip one or two. And if you get hot and play one or two signature events, that's great. But for the most part, I've played everything that I can get into this year, and I probably will be doing the same this next year. And I generally play a bigger schedule as well. So
Yeah, do you find that there's a collection of guys that you just see every single week now? Like there's probably like 25 players who do seem to be grinding out every single tournament?
yeah, I mean, it might be even more. It might be more like 45 guys that you see every week. You get paired up with a lot of the same guys every week because your category is the same. Um, and yeah, there's not as much variability, I guess, with the schedule. Everyone just plays everything that they can get into, really.
Yeah, well, let me ask you this. Is there a way that they can schedule the tournaments where at least at the beginning part of the season and the end part of the season that they get the entire round in one day? Like, do they have to shrink the field? Do they actually have to enforce a pace of play penalty? Like, what is holding everything up here? Are they just overcrowding the course?
I a lot of people might disagree, but I am firmly in the belief that it's not as much of a pace of play issue. Like, yes, there are slow golfers. I'm well aware how slow certain guys are, but it's more of a traffic issue. There's you know way too many guys at one time. 78 players, or 156, so 78 in a wave, and it just one bad hole, and it just causes a chain reaction, and everything gets backed up. And especially early in the year, you don't have as much sunlight. Like every year I go to Sony Open, and I'm part of the group that gets the super early tee times. So you'll get like a 6:50 a.m. tee time, and I'll be standing on the range at like 6:20, and think there's no way we are teeing off at 6. It is pitch dark. But as soon as you're like, okay, I think I can kind of see my golf ball, you're off. And I don't think we still finished. It's just too many people. But at the same time, like I've been in those fringe times where I've been the last guy in, or the second to last guy in, and it's kind of like, which evil do you pick I'm okay with getting a few more guys in the field, and maybe the flip end is that you don't finish as many rounds. But I see it as I don't have as much of a problem with it as others do.
Yeah, I mean, do the players actually, are there players who do have a problem with it, or is this mostly just noise coming from people watching at home?
No. So this is kind of the side to it, is it's that, so the way the tee times work, if you're inside the 125, you get the early times. The winners get the middle times, and it's the sponsor exemption, and the Monday qualifiers get the very last tee times of each wave. So the veterans don't have to worry about finishing as much as they get kind of the short end of the stick. But pace of play. Everyone complains about pace of play. It's a tour wide thing that everyone hates, except maybe a few guys that are the ones that helps the problem along. But everyone understands it's an issue, but it's a complicated issue that it's not just like one simple fix is gonna kind of fix everything.
Does your strategy change, or at least your mood change, if you're stuck behind a guy you know is likely going to be slow all day, and then even if something creeps up and there is a pace of play issue to make it even worse? Like, does that detrimentally affect how you're playing that day, or are you just at the level now where you're just like, you know what, I'm going to deal with this. I know how to deal with it. Because you see certain guys, like all I remember is just Brooks at the Masters playing behind Cantlay, and it looked like he was trying to kill everyone around him. Like, he just couldn't take it.
Yeah, it's not as much of the guy in front. It's more of the guy you're with. I get a text message of my tee time and who I'm playing with right around noon, and you kind of like, oh, I get that guy again. Like, you definitely have those, but you try not to let it bother you. Ironically, like, I know Patrick gets labeled as like a super slow player because of the whole Masters, that scenario you were talking about. But he's actually like not the slowest guy, which is kind of might be dumbfounding for some. He's actually not the slowest. There are guys that are even slower, and yeah, I think that year at the Masters, they went off like one tee or two tees, and it was a lot of people in the field, and I think that just, I remember I think, wasn't John Rahm like in his group or something like that, or the group behind?
Yeah.
I was talking with Rahm, and he said, we were waiting. It wasn't just Pat. Like everyone was. I know Pat gets labeled as the villain and kind of the figurehead of the slow play, but he's not the slowest and not the only guy out there.
Yeah, that was the Masters where they had to cram everything into Sunday because they got rained out for most of Saturday. So I think they played 27 or 30 holes on the Sunday, and it just kept like piling up at the very end. It was Rahm with Brooks in the final group, and Rahm ended up winning that one 2 years ago. After Mad McNeely won his event. So shout out Mad McNeely, after all these years of us betting on you, that you finally get the win when no one bets on you. That's always fun, but glad to see him sticking around here. That he mentioned about the signature events, that there really should be a cut line. I think that everyone who watches golf and likes the PGA Tour agrees. Like, is there anyone out there outside of like the vast minority of players who thinks this is a really great idea? Let's just invite 72 guys. They get to play all 4 rounds. They get a guaranteed paycheck. Like, half the fun of this stuff is the actual cut. It gives it stakes before Sunday. Like, did the players want a cut in these things?
I can tell you the ones that aren't playing would love to see a cut. And I can tell you the ones that are playing the events don't want a cut. So, and the problem is, maybe not a problem, but the point is that the guys making the decisions are more along the ones that are playing in the event, which is why you're seeing the decisions that are being made along those lines. So it's, I think a cut is a super important part of golf. It totally changes how you play on a Friday afternoon if you're near that cut line. And for a lot of the golf sickos, I don't want to label them that, but like a lot of the guys that really like golf are really looking at that cut line as a spectator as well. So I think it's a really important part. I mean, even the Masters, who has a pretty small field, has a cut. I think it would be great just to have a little something to play for on Friday for sure.
Well, the PGA is always looking for ways to monetize the game and try to attract new viewership. I've been railing on it for years, that why not have a red zone type feature on Friday afternoon with the cut line? You get to highlight players that you wouldn't normally highlight. Problem is they don't have cameras at any of these holes. But if you just stuck them at 17 and 18 and 8 and 9, I feel like you could get the gist of what was going on, and then actually have someone on there who could articulate how the cut is actually going out. Like, when they're on the broadcast, they'll be like, well, the cut is -4. Although anyone who uses any sort of projection or just simply looks at the leaderboard, like, no, the cut's going to be like -6 here. Once everyone, birdies 18 or birdies 9 come in, like the Sony Open's a big one for that. Like, they'll always under project it by 2 strokes, not realizing that the 2 easiest holes are the back ends of each of the 9, what the players get to close on. So it just feels like such an easy lift to highlight more players, to create, and it's real drama, like you said. Like, that's probably the most tense a lot of players get throughout the course of the week, unless they're contending coming down the stretch, isn't it?
I think, yeah, I mean, the projected cut that they show on TV is just so stupid to me. Like everyone knows if you've at least watched golf once or twice that know like, like you said at the Sony Open, like the ninth hole is if you hit a decent drive, it's like a 7 iron to a par five, and you're gonna a lot of guys are gonna make birdies, and like that projected cut, like it's so stupid. I feel like for a long time golf has tried to market to the masses and to everyone that, because of Tiger, a lot more guys or a lot more people were watching, and we're trying to get as many of those, tuning in to next week and the week after. But, now I feel like it's, fans are smarter than ever with the gambling aspect that you guys love. You guys are great covering. Like it's, I feel like golf needs to kind of shift its focus a little bit more towards the hardcore fans. Like I said, fans are smarter. Their podcasts, whatever. Like people are so much more in tune to all the aspects of golf, including the cut line. And, it's almost like a slap in the face. Like a guy's like has one hole to go and he's like, oh, the projected cut like is at 5 under when it's going to go to 7. Like that guy doesn't have a chance of making the cut. So it's just one of many changes that the tour can and should kind of look into.
Yeah, if they could just update we created a new app at Fantasy National. I think it's going to be free to everyone in the new year. So we got the ShotLink data feed and worked it into an app where you can just highlight the players you want to go to, and instead of having to open up the tab in real time just to track to see what shot, it all just comes up on one easy page. Put it in your pocket, move on your way, and you can track the tournament that way. But that's like, we were able to accomplish that as a pretty small company. It is mind blowing that the PGA can't figure this out. Because how is everyone watching? How is everyone tracking everything? It's through their phone. It's through their app. And people point to the Masters. Even the Masters app actually got worse this year, although it's still exponentially better than all of them. The only time it ever really works well is at the Players' Championship, when everything is at their home base. They can have all the feeds as quickly as possible, and you can see shots from every hole. I'm not living in a world where I think that we're going to see every shot from every player on every hole at every tournament. But I saw that they were testing out, like I was at the President's Cup, and they didn't do it for that, although they said they were going to, that they were going to put a tracker on the caddies for ShotLink purposes at some of the places where ShotLink can't bring its lasers to, like Bermuda or something like that. Like that seems like a pretty easy lift if you have the money behind it, which it seems like they do now. That it's just an easier way to follow everything. And shouldn't that be what we're doing, making it easier for everyone?
I mean, like I am a PGA Tour player. I have this app that it's only for players and kind of maybe some caddies and some officials. Like it's where I commit to tournaments. You have the leaderboard. Like even I use data golf. Like I just go online and like I wonder what the projected percentages on the cut line for the win. Like it's so kind of backwards that I'm not even using the app that the tour provides. Like privately and on the PGA Tour app that everyone else uses. Like it's yeah, I mean, like the Masters app is historically been amazing. You can usually watch most of the broadcasts there. It's just, I think the tour is in a place where it's like they have to try and monetize everything, and because of that, like all this other junk kind of gets in there, and it's probably part of the issue that causes all this. But by all means, I would love to see a simplified, better app for sure.
Well, when our app becomes free, I'll DM you the link to it, and when you can give me your feedback on that one. I do want to let everyone know, though, that I have the $1 million Pat Mayo guaranteed money tournament for one and done this PGA season, fantasygolfchampionships.com. It's $250 an entry. You can have up to 5 entries, $100K to first prize, guaranteed. It's already 20% full. It starts at the Sony Open. You make one pick per week. Once you pick a player, you don't get to pick them again, and you get their earnings for that tournament as your score for the entire season. This is the biggest it's been. There's 4,500 total people, so you can go to that right now, fantasygolfchampionships.com. And if you haven't got in to PGA Best Ball as of yet, it starts at the Century this year, and I would go to Underdog right now. Use code Mayo, get your sign-up bonus, and play in this. It's $50K to first place, and you just draft 10 dudes, and you go on your way. And Mike, the big thing is, like, we were breaking down the strategy of how to do these fantasy tournaments for, like, the season long, and everyone's like, oh yeah, take Scheffler, or take Xander, but you get scores every single week. So you actually need to balance your team with the guys that play the signature events, but still load up on the guys that play at the Amex and the Sony Open and things like that. It's actually a really cool format. And I think that, initially the DraftKings product really helped when legalized gambling wasn't around, that the only way that you could learn about some of the players in the field was through DraftKings. Now that gambling has become a lot bigger, did you see the impact of that when you're out on the course where guys actually know almost who everyone is now?
Yeah. I usually after like a bad week, I usually get like a message on one of my Twitter posts of thanks for ruining my draft, or whatever lineup that they had, and I just think it's like I don't know, man. I probably have more on the line than you do, so I feel worse than you. Trust me. That's kind of like one annoying part of it, but on the times that I do have a good week, I probably gained a new fan that week. So it's kind of like most things. There's two sides to it, but I think even if it's just a small amount that you have in, like, it makes watching sports so much more fun to watch.
Well, when you guys are playing practice rounds, I'm sure there's money flowing around out there. Or even like when you're playing in the swing season, NFL is going on. Like, are you guys betting with each other? If you can say that.
I don't, but I do know there are guys that, I mean, we might not like gamble as much, but we certainly we talk about the NFL lines or whatever sport that they are super into. Like, at Sony is right when the college football playoff games are kind of finishing up. So, there's usually like a group of 10, 15 guys that meet up at a bar or place to watch at Waikiki, and we all watch, and I'm sure there's some type of money exchange at those events for sure.
Someone wanted me to ask you, what is the best tournament to go to as a player? Maybe not like, I know that you had mentioned the Players Championship is awesome to go to. And obviously you'll have the Masters, but is there any random tournaments like, no, people love going there because it's a great setup?
Century is by far, like, everyone is the happiest on golf course. You have the new season coming up. You had a great season the season prior. So much hope. Sony as well. Like, everyone's in a great mood Tuesday morning. Like, great mood. And then Friday afternoon hits, and then all of a sudden it's like you get like the 10 guys on the range Friday afternoon, like, kind of wondering about like what they worked on in the off season. Like did that even work, or you get the guys that are even happier that what they're working on is good, because you just practice golf and tournament golf are two different things. So those are obviously, you're in Hawaii, those two are obviously super good to go to. I feel like Zurich, I have a blast at Zurich. It's the one regular event that's team. You have a partner, so everyone's it's much more of a, I don't want to say casual, but it's a kind of an uplifted mood the entire week because you have a teammate that week.
Well, I saw that LIV invested in the tour, so it seems like there's not going to be a merger. It seems like that's out the window now. But do you think there's going to be cross promotional things, not necessarily this year, but within like the next 3 years or so, like basically a Ryder Cup between PGA and LIV?
I think that could be really interesting. Whether they get all those guys to show up, is going to be a different question. It's probably with the live guys and the PGA Tour guys. We were just talking about like we play a lot, and really the one real big off season we have is from November to December. It'll be interesting if they can get everyone to show up that week. But if it happens, I'll certainly be tuning in to see Scotty and Rory beat Bryson and Brooks and whoever they have.
Yeah, I think it would be cool because, like I said, I went to the President's Cup. The President's Cup is getting pretty non-competitive, especially when you don't have any of the live guys playing for the international team. Like, I'm Canadian. There's way too many Canadians to take on the best of the American team on the President's Cup team. But, like, I do think that you could almost sandwich that in. Like, leave the Ryder Cup where it is, or just have some sort of other even made for TV event. It doesn't need to be 12 on 12. It could be 6 on 6, 8 on 8, something like that. Because I've always, like, you mentioned you like the Zurich. So most people, like, that's when we take a bye week during the season in terms of betting on golf. Like, if anyone is in the golf industry, that's a great time to take a bye. You get the Mexico Open, and then you get Zurich back to back. That's sort of like a mini break in the schedule from, like, all right, we can relax. It's post Masters, post Heritage in a signature event before you get into the PGA Championship. Do you think that there will ever be like a bye week to give players a rest, or is there just too much money being left on the table for that?
It's a good question. I mean, so the way the tour was structured was, playing opportunities. That was a huge standard or metric that the PGA Tour worked under. I think that's how it really started in the very very beginning. And now with what PGA Tour Enterprises is they're ending up shifting the model a little bit so that there's probably going to be less bloat. Like the opposite field events, they cost the tour a lot of money to run, and probably aren't getting the best ratings. So I could totally see those in a few years kind of being going away slowly or quickly. And along with that, like there definitely could be events or weeks where there isn't as much of a there isn't a tournament, and it's a bye week, because once it becomes like more of a profit thing as opposed to a playing opportunity thing, that could definitely change some things for sure.
I saw a few of the PGA guys, whether I don't think any of them retained their card, but they went over to the LIV qualifying school to get that one spot. Is that something that ever gets talked about amongst the players? Like, oh, I'm on the fringe. Am I going to go back to KFT? Am I going to go to the DP World Tour? Like, do I go take a shot at this to see if I can have those like 3 great rounds and get on to LIV?
For sure. To be honest, I feel like more guys would have went had there been a few more spots. And it's a little like, as players, we don't really know like what possible consequences there be if we play that event. Because the tour is pretty vague when it comes to that. Like, hey, like what would happen if we go there, if we go play? So that has kind of made some players hesitant on going over. And it's also, is it in Riyadh? Is it in Saudi Arabia? Like it's really long ways to go. If I remember correctly.
Yeah, it is. It is in Saudi Arabia. I just noticed that Martin Trainer plays in it every single year, like for the past 2 years. Then like, hey, we're at the Puerto Rico Open. There's Martin Trainer, so it's like, oh, I guess it's fine.
I guess so. It's if it wasn't like Europe, there were more than there was only one spot this year, so I think that was an even bigger turn. But if it was a little closer and there were some, 3 or 4 spots, I think you would have seen more guys go for sure.
Do you think so? There's many different paths to get on. You have the PGA U where you can get in. Obviously, Q School just finished. Do you have any like? You went through Q School, right?
Yeah. There was no PGA Tour U when I was in college. I did Q School as an AM, got got to final stage. I think I missed by 1 or 2 shots, so I had Korn Ferry Tour status. And so I turned pro because I didn't want to do Q school again.
Yeah.
And then I spent 2 years on Korn Ferry and got my PGA Tour card on the second year.
If the 15, there's 10 spots open from the DP World Tour now to get on as like an auto promotion to the PGA Tour. Do you think that's a path that some younger guys might end up taking if they don't qualify through Q School? Like, maybe it's just me that if I was like 21, I turned pro, I could grind on the Korn Ferry Tour and play in like Middle America and all these places, or I can see if I can get my DP World Tour card that way, try to get onto the PGA Tour by playing, I don't know, in like Switzerland and Morocco and just places where you just normally would never see again. Like, I know Brooks did Challenge Tour, came up through the DP World Tour, and ended up coming over. I'm surprised that more people don't take that route. Is it because it's so expensive?
I think, if you're an American golfer that grew up playing in the States, like it's kind of in your head that like you want to try and get your PGA Tour card through Korn Ferry Tour. You're in America. It's a bit more comfortable, I guess. Like you kind of know what to expect. And because of the scheduling for the DP World Tour Q School wise, and the Korn Ferry Tour Q School, it's pretty hard to do both, I think. I recently saw like Corey Sean, I think was his name. Like he did both, and he was traveling like crazy playing both events. But I think it was more like, all right, I'm going to try Korn Ferry Q School. If that doesn't work, maybe next year I might try DP World. If you're a young guy, I totally think, if you can play on the DP World Tour, I think that's a fantastic way to, get better and get tour status along the way. Especially now with the 10 cards available. I think early on, you hope to get your Korn Ferry Tour card and then see what happens and kind of see your options from there.
Well, I mean, obviously a lot of people would get homesick going over to Europe, because I've even heard that in a lot of interviews, even with a lot of the guys that got their card this year coming over to America for the first time, that it's probably a shock to your senses coming from Europe to America, being on the grind of the PGA Tour, that you probably just get homesick, I would imagine. Like, do you like,
for sure.
Like, do you like when you're out on the road, or you're just like, man, I just need to get home?
For sure. Americans going to Europe, and they don't play in like Madrid or Rome or Paris. They go like countryside a lot of the time too. And so, and the European guys come over, and I love the John Deere Classic, obviously, but if you're kind of going to Silvis, Illinois, that's going to be like a culture shock probably for a lot of Europeans. So like it's both ways. And I've been doing this will be my 11th year on tour, or as a pro, and that 4th or 5th week in a row when you're in some odd city, you for sure want to go home. And sometimes because I live in Dallas, if I can kind of get a connection through Dallas just to spend just 1 or 2 days at home, I for sure take that even when I can get it.
The holidays are here, and this year, I'm not stressing about what to wear, especially around the house, because I'll be wearing my Doers. These are the most comfortable pants that I own. They make me look good, and they're so comfortable. I wear them at work, I wear them around the house, I wear them when I'm out doing things, because Doers denim and lifestyle apparel is built for doing. And I can really tell the difference right now, because I've been switching in between jeans and I wear my Doers. There's a lot of temperature fluctuation going on right now at this time of the year. And the high quality temperature regulating fabrics, they keep me warm, but at the same time, I don't get overheated. So that's really where you want to go. And Doer has styles for everyone. They don't chase trends. There are pieces you can wear all year round. Trust me, I know you'll love your Doers as much as I do. Check out Doers flagship stores in LA or Denver, or shop online at shopdoer.com/PME. Right now, my listeners get 20% off your first purchase when you use my exclusive URL, shopdoer.com/PME. This is such a great deal. Don't wait to get 20% off. Go now, shopdoer.com/PME. Introducing to you the TGL presented by SoFi Golf's newest league, live on ESPN and ESPN Plus. This is a simulator plus real chipping, real grass, and real green league featuring some of the PGA Tour's biggest players like Tiger and Rory and Xander. Only 2-hour matches inside of a stadium and has other sporting elements like timeouts, refs, and overtime. You tee off from real grass into a screen. You might end up in the rough, or sand, real sand, and have to play it back into the screen out of there. After that, they use the technology to drop it by a real green side area plus a real putting surface, getting everyone involved in the contest. This isn't your average Sunday pickup game. To learn more, visit tglgolf.com and tune into the inaugural season beginning January 7th. Keep up. It's golf. For 11 months of the year, staying motivated is not a problem for me. Then December hits, the holidays are around, I'm out of my normal routine, and it becomes a struggle to stay motivated and keeping myself laser focused on work and health and getting exercise in every single day just because everything's so out of whack with my schedule being thrown off. The one thing that I've been doing to make sure that I stay on the right path every single day is waking up and drinking my AG1. I get my essentials for nutrients and supplements every single day, and it just makes me feel so good. It makes me motivated to continue to stay focused on what I need to accomplish every single day, no matter how out of the regular routine that my life starts to get. AG1 is a sponsor of the Pat Mayo Experience, so this holiday season, try AG1 for yourself or even gift it to someone special. It's the perfect time to focus on supporting your body with an easy and surprisingly delicious daily health drink. That's why I'm so excited to be partnering with them. And AG1 is offering new subscribers a free $76 gift when you sign up. You'll get a welcome kit, a bottle of D3K2, and 5 free travel packs inside your first box. So make sure to check out drinkag1.com/Mayo to get this offer. That's drinkag1.com/Mayo to start your new year off on a healthier note. Well, that brings me to the main reason that I really wanted to talk to you, because I am a travel points hoarder when it comes to my credit cards. And I saw that you posted that you had $92,000 in travel expenses this year. So I appreciate you being so open with this stuff. So do you have travel tips for people? Because you must be flying first class whenever you're not traveling now with all these points. Like, are the upgrades good when you're spending that much?
I feel like I'm actually on the frugal side of it all. Like 30 events, I played 30 or 31 events, which is like $3,000 a week. There are guys that are exceeding that, by quite a lot, especially if you fly private. I'd be surprised if you had more credit card points than me. I use a Chase card. I've racked up a decent amount, and I usually use that for like international travel with my family or something like that. But travel tips.
Like, okay, how about this? I think I'm gonna go play Corrales in the new year. So I can't get a direct flight to Punta Cana. I need to connect somewhere. Like, if you're ever connecting, I think you said that no one has ever lost your clubs before. I am terrified that I'm just gonna lose any piece of luggage anytime I need to make a connection somewhere. But you don't worry?
I've been really lucky with that. So there are airports that I avoid like it's a virus, and that includes any of the Chicago airports, the Denver airport I try to avoid. There's Minnesota I try to avoid. There's certain airports that I really avoid, and I feel like the only thing that I really make sure to have is an eye mask, because I try to sleep as much as I can on a plane. I've basically got it down to like a system, like, the plane's about to take off. That's when I put the seat back. Then I try to sleep as much as I can at that point. But it's a lot of this. It's like mostly like I'm so used to it at this point, like delays and all that doesn't faze me nearly as much as it used to.
Yeah, you can jump onto Twitter and do a Q&A and kill some time.
That's exactly right.
I think you and I were actually staying at the same hotel during the Wyndham Championship, the one that was right across from the like baseball field.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So like, do you go out of your way to stay at like, whether it be Hilton or Marriott or whatever? Like, do you have that points card too?
Yeah, usually Marriott is just kind of, you have the most hotels each week. So I stay at Marriott hotels when I'm playing tournaments, but then back to the credit card, Hyatt points are really good to put chase points into. So over international, if I'm kind of taking trips, I usually stay at Hyatt hotels.
Yeah, well, that's usually what my wife and I do the same thing. Like I use like my Amex points, transfer them over to airline points to try to fly internationally, get upgraded that way, and use it all for, like you said, international travel seems to be the best bang for your buck. What gets included for players from the tournament? Like, do you get a courtesy car to get to the course?
It differs event to event, but most events you get your courtesy car, breakfast and lunch included at the tournament. I guess because I'm a title staff player, I get 3 hats, 3 dozen golf balls, and 4 gloves. Um, hotel wise, they usually give you a discounted rate, but it's usually like kind of like what because I have Marriott status, I usually can find something with just using my app about the same rate. But honestly, like courtesy cars for a guy that travels a lot, courtesy cars is like a lifesaver. I can't tell you how much I appreciate all the volunteers that are involved with that, and the companies that are involved with that.
What's the best courtesy car you've gotten?
Um, let's see. Usually, like a BMW X5 or X7s are really nice. There's a couple events where we get Cadillac Escalades. Some of the like waste management, they give you a Ford F-150, so it's a massive truck. That's kind of fun to drive for a couple days. I think like the BMW Championship. Unfortunately, I've never played, but I think they give you some of like the cooler cars at that week. I would say those are probably the best ones.
I don't know if you have like secret routes to go into anything. I did my bachelor party in Phoenix for the waste management, and it was impossible to get in and out of.
So yeah, so when you're a rookie, you go through like the normal roads. But if you're a veteran, you learn there's a back road that you can use with your courtesy car. You kind of have to go through one of the hotels in one of the back roads, but usually that legitimately cuts like 20-25 minutes off your travel time. So that is one of the things that you definitely have to take advantage of.
Was this year how many times have you played Phoenix? Was this the first year in a while that you've played? I was just trying to look it up.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've probably played it maybe 4 times now, I want to say.
Yeah, I what I got you here. 2024, 2021, 2019. I was there in 2017. You played that. You played well that year. You came T24. Your best finish ever in Phoenix. Great ball striking week. But have you noticed it getting, I don't know, it seems like it got a bit, we expect it to be rowdy. We expect it to be fun. It seems like it kind of crossed the line a little bit the past few years, though, with guys getting way too, like, throwing the beer onto the green. It was fun that one time. Now everyone's kind of doing it. Like, are there just too many people there now?
You kind of have the expectation that it could get crazy week of or heading into that week. So you kind of set your expectations a little bit different when you're playing. I think it got crazy on that Saturday, which unfortunately I missed the cut, so I wasn't a part of that. But it also rained a ton Thursday, Friday, so there was like a bunch of like super muddy spots, which kind of fed into the drunkenness scene of it all. They said they're gonna try and improve on that for this upcoming year. which I mean, I'll be there, but it's the amount of people that come to that event. It's like usually like in the six figures, especially Friday and Saturday. Like it is a crazy like people watching experience if you have the time and you're okay with that kind of scene. As a player, you already kind of know what you know what you're getting into, but throwing the beer on the scene, like I get it, like it's a cool thing, but I am really not in favor of that for sure.
No, I was not prepared. Like I went in expecting it to be rowdy, hence why I did my bachelor party there. So it was like me, like my nine guys who were with me on the trip. We're drinking all day long. The amount of fist fights that I saw in the crowd was unbelievable. Like this one guy, like Ricky Fowler was teeing off at one of the, I think it was like 13. And we were sitting there in the crowd watching up from like a bit of a ledge. You just see Fowler's about to hit and somebody comes out of nowhere and sucker punches another guy like 5 feet away from Ricky teeing off. It was insane.
Yeah, like I think I saw one of my friends, Zach Johnson, almost get into one.
Are there guys that actively avoid that tournament just because that's just not their scene? Because I know for years, like Finau just did not play well there. Like he'd be playing great. He'd go to Phoenix, miscut, like get out of Dodge.
For sure. There's definitely guys that I know that just avoid that event, and even for guys that have families, they usually don't bring their kids to the event because they're not sure what they might kind of get in with that event. But a lot of the younger guys kind of love that scene because it feels like you're playing like a actual like really big sporting event where it's kind of that stadium feel.
I know, like I'm Canadian, so for the Canadian Open, they've created like the par 3 hole. They call it like the penalty box. It seems like I think they do it at Rocket Mortgage too. There's a few different tournaments that are trying to recreate that atmosphere in a really isolated part. Do you think it works at any of those other tournaments?
I think so. Like I think it's great at Canada. So last year on Sunday, I think I played with Mike Weir.
Oh God.
And walking towards the rink. I think they do this every time a Canadian player walks in. They sing the Canadian national anthem, and like I had chills. Like it was such a cool scene. Like weather was great. So there's a ton of people out. They sang the entire song. We played the whole. I thought it was great. This last year in I forget what the course name was, but it was actually like a pretty difficult par 3. Like it was like a 5-iron, like in kind of like wet, rainy conditions too at times. Like I wish they had, like 16 at Stadium works great because it's like 150-yard, 60-yard hole where you're gonna see some birdies. I wish they pick a par 3 that it's a little bit easier, or they can make it a little easier so that they can see a bit, some more fireworks. But I think Canada does it great. Rocket Mortgage, I'm not sure if it works as well there. But like obviously 17 at Sawgrass works awesome. Like when you're on 16 green, you are for sure thinking about like, okay, what's the wind doing? Trying to kind of get mentally prepared because I'm telling you, like players get nervous when you walk into those atmospheres for sure.
Is it more the hole itself, knowing that if you miss, like if you mistime the wind, like you're going to be in the water, or is it the pressure knowing this is 17 that there's so many people around it? Like what's the biggest mental part of that? Is it the hole itself or is it the atmosphere?
It's both. That you're playing in a big tournament, you want to do well. It's just like you've seen that hole for so many years on TV growing up. You've seen the disasters as well, and like to this day, I still remember like every time I walk into 17, like what Sean O'Hare did playing against Phil that one year, like still like comes to mind. Like you're just trying to hit the green, and the atmosphere of it all, like really feeds into that. And the hole itself is like a pretty, the green is actually like pretty wide, so the hole itself isn't like the most difficult hole, but the atmosphere really provides those nerves for sure.
Yeah, like how dissimilar? I know the holes aren't exactly the same, but I think it's 17 at PGA West, the other Pete die. It's like a peninsula green, I guess, where it has the rocks around it. Like it's a pretty similar shot, although I think that one's a little bit longer, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, so 17 at the Amex now is definitely a much harder shot than the one at Sawgrass, as long as it's wind. If you take the wind out, like the green is much smaller. And I remember this year I hit like a smooth 8 iron or something like that. So it's probably playing like 160 or something like that. Sawgrass, you're at most hitting like a 150-yard shot unless it's super into the wind. But yeah, the only that hole they cover up the super back tee because there's one more tee or maybe one or two more tees behind, and it could be like even like 180-yard shot, which is like that green is actually small. Like that green is would be a tough hole. And usually when Q School was there, you would see, I mean, you guys would see some nerves on that tee, trying to secure a tour card on that hole.
Is Q School the most nerve-inducing thing that you can have? Like even more so than like, coming down the stretch, competing for a win, trying to make the cut. Like, is Q School the pinnacle of it and we just don't see it?
I think like when you're playing for your job, whether it's Q School or like RSM or what used to be Wyndham, like there is a different vibe for sure. Like Wyndham week, in weeks prior, like the range is a bit more quiet. Like the player dining is a bit more quiet. Like there's a different vibe. Like even like the very boisterous guys on weekend, like they're not as like boisterous. Like there's a different vibe when the job is on the line. When you're playing to win a golf tournament on the PGA Tour, you're playing well. It's a bit more of like it's a lot of nerves, but it's more like an excitement type of nerves. Whereas like trying to make like a 10-footer to make the cut so you have a chance if you're a fringe guy, that's for sure more nerves than trying to win a PGA Tour event. It's a little, I would say, like your heart rate is similar, but it's a different feeling and mindset when you're playing that.
This has been the online discourse lately. I see people arguing about it all the time. I don't think it really makes that big of a difference, but do you care that people want to be paid to play in the Ryder Cup? Do you think they should be paid to play in the Ryder Cup?
I certainly think like they should be paid. Like I don't understand, like NBC makes a ton of money on it. PGA of America makes a ton of money on it. Like what number that it should be and whether it should be like given to charity or not, that is a totally like a discussion to be had. But like I find it weird that like the players themselves are the ones that are making this product happen, and it's the passion and all that. Like the players are the matches are the product. Like it's weird to me, like, well, why don't you complain to NBC? Like they shouldn't have as many commercials and they should get rid of playing through or whatever, stuff like that. So it's weird to me that the players, just because they're really well off, that they shouldn't be paid. Like now it should it be like $500,000, I think what it was. Like the number totally we can talk about. I do think they should be paid or given to their most of these guys have foundations now, so like if it's X amount to their charity of choice or to their foundation, like sure, for sure, but I for sure think they should be paid.
Yeah, well, they
in
can
some shape or form.
they can give up the paycheck. I like your idea. They give up the paycheck. NBC scales back 50% on commercials, and then we can actually
Everybody
watch.
wins.
Yeah, everyone wins in that scenario. I can watch 3 shots in a row. That would be nice without having to see a commercial. It absolutely,
For sure.
I mean, when you're like, how much PGA do you watch when you're not playing?
So I actually think like this is kind of an issue. Like unless it's like a really close friend that is playing and maybe about to win, like I generally don't watch a ton. Like Ryder Cup, President's Cup, majors, I'll tune in here and there just to watch a bit more. But like week in and week out, like if I'm not in the event, like I probably am not watching. So a lot of the fan like discourse of the commercial load and the broadcast complaints about that, like a lot of the players are I assume like are kind of on my side of like we don't watch the product ourselves. So when fans complain about like commercials and all that, like we don't see it, and it's not like we actually notice all the problems. So that's, I feel like it's part of the issue why like why maybe there aren't as many changes along those lines.
That actually makes a ton of sense. I had never really considered that, but yeah, I just think it hurts the growth of everything. Like you're gonna get your diehards, like you said, that if they're trying to figure out ways to basically keep the Tiger crowd, which just isn't happening, unless like listen, Caitlin Clark comes to the WNBA, people start watching the WNBA. Tiger came to golf, way more people started watching golf. Like unless there's another personality like that who becomes one of the 5 biggest athletes in the world, or at least America at the time, you have to get your base. But the only way to really grow, I think, or at least maintain a lot of these people, is just make the viewing experience a little bit better, make the app a little bit better, just make it easy to watch this instead of hard. I really feel like is the big thing that I would try to articulate to everyone.
Yeah, it's not just the golf thing too. Like NBA recently,
yeah.
I've seen a ton like you need like 5 different subscriptions and stuff like that just to watch, and their ratings are down. And it's like to look on a bigger scale, it's like every year like the contracts need to get more and more, and then the TV companies have to find more marketers and find more commercial load. So it's it's a tough question. I think like if we get more of an investment, this is never going to happen, but if we get more of an investment from PIF, like using those money to buy like our commercial, to buy off some of the commercial load would be great. But it's tough. Like you said, it's interesting because I feel like playing golf is more popular than ever before. Like if I go to any golf course in the area, like I feel like it's busy. Just the watching aspects there, it just hasn't transitioned over as well.
Yeah, well, I know the pandemic had a ton to do with that, where it was the only thing that you could really go out and do for a while. And I know even like at my course now, we upped our membership 2 years ago. We upped our membership last year, and like we had to take a vote this year. Like, hey, we'll pay more to keep. It's not that we want to keep people out, but it's becoming to that point where I want to be able to show up every day and get a tee time. I don't care when it is, but have that be available to me. And I think that's how everyone kind of felt. But like, there's just massive demand for it, and it's almost like courses went away for a while between like 2005 and 2020, and then everyone got back into golf and they wanted places to play, and there are just fewer places to play now.
Yeah, I mean, like golf courses in Dallas, especially like private golf courses, they're crushing it. I feel like every golf course that I know are doing renovations because they're getting so much an influx of cash. Like it's just I best of both worlds. Like I wish TV would do a better job, and I don't even know how. It's such a difficult question. Or I guess I know how. You just show more golf. But I still think there is an opportunity to like get more fans into the TV product as well, and hopefully once these all these deals kind of fall into place, we can focus more on that.
Last thing before I let you get out of here, and thank you for all the time, is you mentioned being frugal in terms of the flights, collecting points, getting discounted hotel rooms, and like you're not out there spending billions of dollars every single year just for your travel. Do you see some guys who, like, again, you don't need to name names on this, but you see guys just basically wasting their money when they're first on tour? Like, they just don't have any conception of, hey, I might need to save some of this money or cheap out here, cheap out there in order so I have a reserve to keep this going. That some guys might not necessarily flame out because of talent. It's just they can't afford to do this anymore.
I maybe in a text thread I could tell you some of the names, but like for sure, like you were like, oh, like so I got rid of my Instagram, so I feel like I don't see it as much. But I remember like I was playing an opposite field event, and one of the players like booked like the St. Regis, and I was like, dude, you're playing opposite field event. Like, I know you've done well, but like that just seems like so overboard, and stuff like that. I feel like back before, even before I was on tour, that you would see more of that. But as you're growing up, I feel like you hear stories of like, how many athletes can go bankrupt, and golf is great that you can have a long career, but we don't have guaranteed contract. Like me, when I was playing my worst, like I was losing money every year, because I was just missing all those cuts. Every missed cut is minus however many grand you spend. So I for sure I feel like it might be overspending for sure.
Yeah, well, I would just think like it's difficult with golf, like you mentioned, like everything is on you. So is that like ingrained in the system? Like when you're coming up, like did they have like when you become a Korn Ferry rookie for the first time, do they have like financial meetings? Because I know they had to do that, start doing it at least in other sports. Be like, hey, don't spend $7 million on a house because you signed a $7 million contract. Stuff that should be like very A to B in people's minds, just weren't there for a lot of people. But in golf, where it's always an individual thing, like do you learn that coming up through the ranks, be it through college, junior golf, Korn Ferry, hell, the PGA Latin America Tour. I guess it's the Latin America Canadian Tour now. The Fortinet Cup, I believe it's called. But like, is it just something guys talk about? Do they tell you about it? Or is it just, hey, you need to figure this out?
A little bit of both. Like the agency I signed with, like Wasserman, like they helped me find a financial advisor and through that, but also like the PGA Tour, when you get your card, like there's a big orientation that you have to attend, and they cover a bunch of different things where it comes to like gambling or like financial advice or even tax advice and stuff like that. But there are resources that's available to you at all times, but a lot of times it is up to you to try and find those resources.
I didn't realize that you and I were both rep by the same place. That's awesome.
There you go.
Yeah, shout out Team Waz for the agency win, both in sports and sports media. So we're good to go. Anyway, Mike, thanks for taking the time to do this. Appreciate it. Enjoy the holidays. And when between now and Sony, how many swings do you think you're going to get in? Like, is it a regular thing, or are you just taking some time off?
I just like the last couple days, I just started practicing back up. I actually just started trying to do some speed training with the stack system. So through that, I've had plenty of swings, but just kind of slowly getting back into the thing of things with actual golf shots.
Well, thank you again for being so open with everything, especially online, doing the Q&As with everyone. I know people love it, and thanks for taking the time doing this.
Thanks for having me. Happy holidays.
Yeah, you too. So everyone out there, smash a like to the channel. This is the kickoff to golf preview for 2025. We got drafts coming up. We have player rankings coming up. We have major preview coming up. The season in review, the season ahead. It's all coming, and it starts right now on the Pat Mayo Experience. So if you're here and you're getting into golf for the first time, stick around with us because football doesn't go on forever. Although it seems like it does, there is a Super Bowl, and then we take a break a little bit, and then there's golf every single day for us to talk about. All right? I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!